One of the biggest selling points EA made for us to buy Madden 24 was the increased customization available to us in franchise mode. One of those increased customization options that we've had in this game is draft class quality sliders. And this is a slider set that can be very impactful into how your franchise plays out long term. How good the rookies are plays a massive impact, a couple years down the road, also early on as well. And so I have done a lot of work into testing out these sliders at all the levels for all the positions. And in this video, I'm going to show you what my findings are, make those findings available to you so you can do your own, deductions off of them, and also give a suggestion of what I will be using in my personal franchises here in Madden 24. So let's go ahead and hop into kind of the research that I've done. So what I have opened up here is a Google Doc that is available for viewing access for anybody who's watching this video in the link in the description. And what information I am showing here is that I have simulated 10 draft classes of every different strength for every different position here in the NFL draft. And I was looking for two things. The first thing is we see here on the left is overall ranges. How often was I getting 80 plus overall players, high 70s, mid 70s, low 70s? And then what dev traits was I getting? Now for dev traits, I only looked at the first 3 rounds. And why did I only look at the first 3 rounds? I think those are the rounds that are the most important to hit on in the NFL draft in Madden 24 and just all Maddens in general. And in doing the first, 3 rounds, doing 10 classes for all 5 different strengths, 3 rounds is 96 players, multiply that by 50 classes. I had to manually click on 4,800 players to figure out this information. So I figured the first 3 rounds was enough. And that's also why the sample size is only 10 classes per level. Obviously, if you get a bigger sample, you'll get more accurate representation. And I'll show you throughout the presentation of this data that some things maybe look a little wonky because of the small sample size, but it took so long to make this video just with the 10 that that was all I was willing to do before I was bored to death. So as you can see, for an entire draft class on the very weak level, I averaged about 34 players that were rated at 70 or above. And this is the entire class. This is all the way down to UDFAs. And then in the first 3 rounds, about 28% of the first 3 rounds consisted of hidden dev players. Going up here to weak, that jumps from 34 up to 55 in terms of how many in the draft class total had 70 plus overall. And you're getting about 40% hidden. Up to normal, which is what the default setting is for every position, you get about 97 players, 70 overall plus throughout the entire draft. And a little bit over half, at 60% of the first 3 rounds will consist of hidden dev players in my sample. You get about 35, 40 more 70 plus overalls with the strong, and you get nearly 70% hidden dev. And then on the very strong draft class, you get just under 200 70 plus overall players. You're getting so many 70 overall players, and you get a hidden dev in the first 3 rounds over 3/4 of the time. But that's just the draft class information as a whole. You probably want to know on a position by position basis, and that's where, depending on if you download this, you only have viewer access if you click on the link in the description below. You can't download it as an Excel if you're using it on a device that has Excel. Or to get the position by position, you can always click on the tabs. But for those who want to download it on Excel, I have a nifty little ability here where if you want to see position by position for normal, right, you can see that a normal draft class for running backs gets about 7.5 running backs at 70 overall plus per draft class. 87% of the first 3 rounds of running backs will be hidden, but for receiver, you only get about 43% hidden dev percentage. And we saw that in our first draft in our draft only franchise, where I drafted a normal dev receiver who was really good. He was just normal dev. Another position that has high normal dev rate, linebacker, defensive end. You got a lot of positions that are hitting normal development more than half of the class in the first 3 rounds. Whether or not that's good is all dependent on how you like to play franchise. But like interior offensive line here, 93% of these 10 draft classes I simulated on normal percent had hidden development in the first 3 rounds. Only 5 total normal development players in 10 classes. That's a really low amount, obviously. And so I've done this for every single class. Class strength, of course. And on very strong, you could see, I mean, quarterbacks almost all hidden, running backs almost all hidden, receivers still a little bit low, tight ends almost all hidden here. And so if you want a full breakdown of all the data that I've collected, feel free to hop into the link in the description, mess around with the spreadsheet if you can download it, or if you can't, you might just have to go the long way and receive receivers this way rather than do it all on the front page. So with that being said, I'm now going to go position by position and give you what I would recommend as my preferred draft class quality setting. Of course, you don't have to do this at all. I encourage you to check out the link in the description and just see the data for yourself and make your own decision on how you like to play franchise. But if you're looking for suggestion, I'll definitely give that now. And for quarterback, first, I think kind of crazily enough, in my slider testing, you can see that between weak and strong, there isn't much difference. I mean, we're getting 370 pluses, 2.5, 3.6 in weak. We actually got the most in weak. Now, of course, I think this is an example of just the small sample size kind of messing with the data here. I don't think over time, if you had a lot of classes, this would maintain. So you're kind of looking at hidden percentage here. Normal actually has more than strong. I definitely would not recommend very strong. I think you're just going to get too many OP classes. You're going to get more than one, high 70s QB. You're going to get pretty much an X factor every draft. I think that's too much. But I honestly think anything between strong and weak is pretty good. I personally think in my franchises in Madden 24, I will be going for weak. I just think quarterback is a position in real life so very hard to hit on. And so I think that should be replicated in Madden. Moving on to the running back position. As you can see here, if you go anything less than normal, your chances at a hidden dev running back are very slim. So I would not recommend going there because I do think running back is a position where you see early success very, very often. And so I would recommend more normal to strong. I'm just going to tell you right now, I'm not recommending very strong anywhere because it is accurately named very strong and it's going to be a little bit too OP. If you want to have insane draft classes, that's all good and well. For my franchises, will be keeping running backs on normal. I think you have a high hidden percentage. You have about 7.5 backs getting 70 plus overall in a draft class. I think those are really good numbers, and I don't want to really get any better than that. Heading now to wide receiver. What would I recommend for wide receiver here? Taking a look, I think once again, just the hidden percentage of these weaker classes is gonna make me not nerf the receivers, but I don't also see anything wrong with the normal, so I will be going with normal here on my franchise on my YouTube channel. I have a draft only franchise. I'd encourage you to check it out. We're having a lot of fun early on in that. Moving on to the tight end position. I think this is a position where I saw a pretty big number of X factors here at the tight end position in the normal dev sim. I got 4 X factors in 10 drafts. That's pretty high. Also, getting 80% hidden is probably a little bit too much, even though I know I recommended it here in running backs. I just think 26 is also way too low, and running back's an easier position. So once again, I'm going to recommend the base slider here. So far, we've only made one change from default, but from the samples that I've done, I actually like normal the most in most settings. Now, one where I think it might be worth a bit of a change could be tackle. Now, tackle is a position where in recent drafts, we have seen that some of the top players at the position are still on rookie deals. And I think without having the ability to reliably dev up offensive linemen, that I might be going strong here. Yes, it's a very high hidden, but so is it here the same way? You just get a little bit more depth. You don't have to spend a first round pick on a lineman to get a good one. Whereas I saw in normal, there was a decent, pretty decent bit, right? 9, average 70 plus, but they were all pretty much in the first 40 or so picks. It seemed like most drafts. There were a couple of exceptions to that, but I like a little bit of depth. Although the tackles in real life, you know, they are usually drafted high, the ones that have broken out, but I like a little bit of offensive line depth in my classes. And so I might be going strong. Where I will not be going strong, however, is interior offensive line. This position is a little bit OP. As I highlighted, 93% are hidden development on the normal scale. I actually might dumb down the lineman a little bit here, interior offensive lineman. You're still getting about 7 per class that are 70 plus, and you still have a pretty good hidden development trait. So I think tackle, normal or strong, I think you could go either way, but interior offensive line, I think does need to be nerfed just a little bit. Defensive end. Defensive end is actually one that I would buff a little bit here. Tackle, I think I'm actually going to stick at normal now that I've looked at it a little bit more, but defensive end here, I'm going to buff. So as you can see, even on strong, you're getting below 60% hidden development traits. You're getting below 10 players averaging 70 plus in my sample size. Of course, in very strong, that goes up a ton, but that seems to be where the real big jump is at the defensive end position. Didn't even get a single 80 plus player in 10 draft classes when I did defensive end at strong. And so I think that is one worthy of a buff. Defensive tackle. Now this one kind of depends on how you want to do the draft, because if you look in real life, good defensive tackles are very rare. We had a very highly touted defensive tackle prospect in Jalen Carter come out this year. And of course, there were some things that had him fall a little bit in the draft, but when was the last really highly touted defensive tackle before him? Are we talking like Quinnen Williams, the last guy that was talked about as a top 5 pick? And so just because it's really hard to draft good defensive tackles in real life, I'll keep it at normal, even though the normal numbers aren't excellent. They're pretty good, but as you can see, only one guy even in the high 70s, nobody in the 80s. So you're going to get more kind of mid defensive tackles, but that's how it's kind of been in real life, honestly. Now, linebacker, this includes edge linebackers as well. It's not my fault that Madden is this way. This is one where it's kind of, I would say, between normal here and strong. Depends on if you want more of a challenge or to be a little bit easier. 19.5 is pretty big, but 42% is pretty low here. So it's kind of like, I wish there was, you know, one right here, right in the middle. But I think I'll be sticking at normal just for a little bit more of a challenge in my franchises. Corner, absolutely 100% needs a nerf. Now you can see hidden hits are actually pretty low all around at the corner position. Like even on very strong, 82% is one of the lowest. So if all you're looking for is hidden development, then I wouldn't nerf it. But dang, do corners generate on normal. I had 10, you're gonna have a player with 70 plus every draft pretty much at that position, and it just gets more and more insane. I had 2.5 corners per draft class at very strong at 80 plus overall. So I think I am going to make corners weak in my personal franchises for Madden. And then the last position is safety, where I think, low 60s hidden dev, just under 10 70 pluses per draft class. That's kind of the range that I'm looking for. No 80 pluses in my small sample. And then if you go down to weak, it gets nerfed significantly. You could maybe even argue strong with this. I just think you're getting a little bit too much in that 70 plus range. Hidden actually went down slightly, but again, I think that's more small sample theater and not going to be reflective in the long term. But in my small sample, I mean, we're talking pretty much no change here in hidden. So at that point, you're just looking for a good amount of 70 pluses, which I think normal does provide. Safety, another position that hasn't really had a bunch of studs come out of the draft. So if you wanted to be even maybe closer to real life, you could go weak, but 2.5 and 2.5 and 25% is really, really bad. So I'm going to go stick with normal for safety. So to cap off most of these positions, I would recommend basically sticking at the default. I would nerf corner. I would nerf interior offensive line for sure. And then you might consider buffing positions like tackle, like defensive end, and maybe quarterback. I think quarterback, you could argue, it just kind of depends. Do you like having sick quarterbacks in your franchises and you want the CPU to have good success with their drafted quarterbacks, but also it's going to be easier for you to draft a quarterback, which once you get an OP quarterback, playing franchise in Madden does become a lot easier. So I hope you enjoyed the work that I put into this video. If you did, please drop a like. This video took me a lot longer to create than pretty much any of the other videos I've made in quite some time. It was helpful for me for sure because I want to have good settings in my franchises, and I hope this will help you. Even if you don't follow my suggestions, hopefully you saw the data and said, you know what, I actually like what I saw from, that strength from this position. And so that was the goal of this video, not to get you to play your franchises like me, but to give you the data to help you play the franchise like you want it to. And if you want to do your own research, I'll kind of show you how to do it here. This is the last class. I just barely finished doing my research here, and so I still have this class open. What you want to do is you want to do an offline franchise. And with this franchise, you want to create a save points in the last week of preseason. As you can see, the menus take so long here. I have a franchise offline called D-Class Res, which stands for Draft Class Research. I go into it, and the reason you want to do it in preseason week 4 is because in week 1 of the regular season is when Madden generates the draft classes every time. So this is about as close as you can get before a draft class is generated. Over in options, league settings, down here the bottom one is edit draft class strength. You edit the class to, this is taking forever right now. You edit the class to whatever strength you're looking to test. And then you sim forward a week. That's what we're about to do right now. And then once this is done simulating the last week of preseason, you go to choose draft class, keep it auto-generated. This would go a lot smoother if Madden had even semi-acceptable menu speeds. Right now it is so slow to start. Press L3 in on the left stick, go to edit draft class, and now you can see the ratings for everybody. I would go position by position. I would count up how many there are at each overall value in my ranges there, add them up, and then I would go into every single player here inside the first 3 rounds, toggle over to the far side. There you see their development, and that's how I would do it. Again, that was 4,800 people that I clicked in for this video. So I hope it helps make your franchise experience more enjoyable. Feel free, if you want to download this and then add more research and just keep getting more and more into just get a bigger sample size that you can get even more accurate. That would be awesome. This is just as much as I was willing to do for the sake of a video and for my franchises. This took me so long already, but that's all I've got for this video. Again, if you like Madden content, Madden franchise content, I am doing a draft-only franchise with a relocation team in London. It's going, as you might suspect, in a draft-only franchise in year one thus far, but hoping to turn things around in it. But hopefully I'll see you over there. Subscribe to the channel, as we do a lot of draft-based sports content on the video games, multiple sports, 2K, MLB The Show, all the good stuff. But that's all I've got for this video. Once again, thank you if you've still sticking around here to the end. We'll be back soon with more draft-focused content, and I will see you then.